Welcome everybody to the K-16 Data Sharing Agreement and Pilot Info session. My name is Yuli Smith. I am a program manager with Capital Impact, specifically working on the K-16 Collaborative, and I'm the program manager for the Data Sharing and Initiative work group. So I'm going to give it just maybe one more moment to let everybody get settled before I turn it over. Can everybody see the screen? The presentation? Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. So this is our agenda for today. We will go over the scope of the full data sharing pilot. We will be sharing a little in depth about the technology that will go behind it, the security governance framework, the data sharing agreement itself. So we, our council, will show you the actual MOU and go through the varying exhibits in full detail. And then it'll be followed up with a Q&A. So that can be done either we can try raising your hand function and we'll call on you. You can also enter it into the chat and we'll get to those as well. So feel free to start kind of gathering your questions while the presentation is going, but we'll hold the questions till the very end so that we don't disrupt the flow of the presentation and can get through all the information that we're planning on making sure everybody has before the time runs out. So we have our three chairs here of the data sharing initiative who have been just great leaders in these efforts. So we have Amber Jacobo with SCOE, the Sacramento Office of Education, Isaac Cabrera with Sac State, and Manveer Bola with Los Rios Community College District. So I am going to hand it over to our chairs to start the presentation. And here we go.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, I'm Manveer Bola. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor of IT for the Los Rios Community College District. We're a large community college district in the Sacramento area, comprised of 4 colleges. And we're very happy to be here today and talk about the exciting work that has been done to share data in our region. So the scope of this data sharing initiative, which started back in March of this year, was really to demonstrate, right, the value of data sharing within our region, and what benefits can be achieved through improved data sharing between educational entities. So the data sharing pilot had 3 foundational elements, and that's what you see on the screen here, which comprised of a data sharing agreement between the entities that share data. Another foundational element was the technology, right? The actual technical platforms, the data warehouse, the data pipelines that move data between entities, as well as the logging and cataloging of that data through a data dictionary or data catalog. And then the third element, which was very important because it really enabled everyone to be more comfortable with sharing data, is the development of a security and governance framework. And we'll talk about each of these 3 areas in greater detail throughout this presentation. Next slide, please. All right, so the data sharing agreement and pilot effort itself was pretty defined and limited in scope. Again, the thought was let's try this out and then let's demonstrate the value, and then hopefully it will grow from there. So the scope was determined to be 2 different kind of sub-efforts. One was around dual enrollment and the other was around adult learners. So the dual enrollment pilot was a data sharing collaboration between Los Rios Community College District, Elk Grove Unified School District from the K-12 perspective, and then the Sacramento County Office of Education. So that's the arrows on the left there. And the goals for this effort was to share data on current and prospective dual enrollment students. And what we intend to do with that data was to support more targeted outreach, help with student onboarding, and provide greater visibility into how those students are performing as part of the dual enrollment programs. On the other side, the other initiative was around adult learners, and this was a separate collaboration between Los Rios Community College District and Sacramento State. So this one was more focused on students that are age 25 and above, who have not completed their educational objective. And the goals here was really to help gather data to help identify reasons for missed enrollment, and then look for opportunities between Los Rios and Sac State on where we could look for additional opportunities that we could align with this prospective student. So if the student has achieved a certain amount of credits, can those credits be applied to other degree or certificate opportunities to get them back on board? And then this would also support more targeted outreach for those students. So now we'll go into each of those kind of foundational elements, starting with the technology. So we can go to the next slide. So again, this goes a little bit deeper into that dual enrollment initiative. And it's what data we're actually going to be sharing. So the data that's been negotiated between Elk Grove, SCOE, and Los Rios is data that would cover all 11th and 12th graders. And you'll see there that the types of data that's going to be shared would include the student's name, address, birthday, what kind of pathway those students are on, and any kind of awards or certificates that were received. And really, this would really help with more targeted outreach, but also will help us understand how successful those dual enrollment students were as they progressed through from K-12 through a 2-year college to a 4-year university. Then this kind of gives you a taste of what the data elements that are being shared on the adult learner side. So you'll see here between Sac State and Los Rios, very similar data elements. There's some differences between what Los Rios is sending to Sac State and what Sac State is sending to Los Rios. But again, this goes into students' name, some race ethnicity information. But this one actually goes into a lot more coursework, right? So we'll be able to share what coursework those students have completed. That way we could align it with different degree programs or opportunities and identify other opportunities that may exist for students that have disengaged. And then this slide kind of just shows you from a technology perspective how this is all being done under the hood. So one of the kind of the constraints that we had when we were planning this all out is this was all funded by the K-16 grant, which is a limited funding stream, and it didn't account for future funding to keep this going. So we really looked for a sustainable model. Also, we wanted a very secure model. We all know one of the biggest hesitations for entities to share data is risk, right? Security risks of exposure. So this model was really designed for each entity to have complete control over the data that they share, and give them the ability to either activate data shares or to suspend data shares when they need to. So the way this was done is each entity is going to have a secure repository that's within their own technical environment, and they're going to enable each other entity that they have a data sharing agreement established with to provide that data. And then the other entity would kind of have the same setup. So it'd be kind of a handshake between each entity. And then which would also give the entity the ability to sever data sharing if needed. So now we'll get into the security and governance framework. Did Isaac join? No.
Don't see that he did. Manveer, are you able to share with us this
I will do
section?
my best.
Okay, thank you.
So the second foundational element that was developed was that security and governance framework. So, and this was something that was identified very early is it to address those concerns about security, because that's the biggest obstacle when it comes. Trust is the biggest obstacle when it comes to data sharing. So the intent was to develop a document that outlines all the security requirements that need to be put in place before an entity could participate in this data share agreement. And it really helps ensure that all participating entities meet a minimum level of security before accessing the data. So all parties participated in the development. Each party engaged their cybersecurity personnel and their legal teams to really vet out what are those minimum requirements that we want to establish, and then implemented them through this security sharing guide. The thought is that this is going to be a living document that's going to outlast the pilot and the K-16 grant. And there's going to be governance that is going to be created that will keep this document up to date and ensure that it evolves as security threats and other privacy issues may arise. So it'll be continuously updated through the lifetime of the data sharing. This slide kind of just lays out some of the different layers that have been taken into consideration when we talked about cybersecurity. So when you look at the cybersecurity guide, it outlines these three layers: the data encryption layer, the identity access, which is sign in, and then the network. And then it lays out pretty stringent requirements for each of those three layers. And that's kind of how the guide itself was constructed. And I also kind of hinted upon the governance that will be stood up. So there's going to be a data governance committee that will have representatives from each of the parties that are involved in the data sharing agreement. And it will not only keep that guide up to date, but it'll also be responsible for making sure that that each entity complies with the terms of the data sharing agreements. Some of those terms require each entity to identify what users that they have that are accessing the data. So this committee will be involved in making sure that those user lists are kept up to date. They're also going to be providing training. So I know our team is working right now on providing FERPA training. So there's some training requirements that go along with the data sharing agreements as well. So this governance group will help ensure that those that training is being delivered and entities are in compliance. In addition, there's terms in the agreements that entities can sever data sharing relationships if desired. This governance would ensure that happens, right? If entity decides not to stop sharing data, then that would be facilitated through this committee as well. And then we're also accounting for worst case. So in addition to, and I think Tui will talk about this later on in the presentation, an additional safeguard that was baked into this data sharing agreement was cybersecurity insurance, and also breach incident management, which means if something terrible was to happen and there was an exposure, there are terms that require notification, but also that's backed up with cybersecurity insurance to help mitigate those risks. All right, so I hope I navigated through that effectively. Again, apologies if I didn't. So now Amber is going to speak to the roadmap.
Yeah, thanks, Manveer. And I just want to highlight the importance of what Manveer just covered, that trust and security is, one of the utmost areas of concern when talking about sharing data. So we have taken this whole process very seriously, and I'm so excited to be able to say that we have so many pieces in place to make sure that that's happening, so everybody can feel comfortable and confident in the data that they're sharing. So yeah, I have the roadmap and early learnings. I'm Amber Jacobo with the Sacramento County Office of Education, and our office has a vested interest in making sure that many students have access to quality dual enrollment experiences, and want to make sure that we are providing that access and opportunity to a variety of different students. And so we're interested in being able to have data that would be able to show what is available now so that we can better construct what barriers might exist, and if we're removing those barriers, if things are improving, and then what happens when those students go from K-12 into higher ed. So we're really excited about these opportunities, and going on to where we are right now in this process. Right now we are, so we negotiated and finalized the primary MOU, which Twee will talk about, so I won't talk about that a lot. But what I will say is that where we are right now is going through the secondary data sharing agreements. And again, I know Twee's going to talk more about that, but this timeline is relies on the implementation and the conclusion of those secondary data sharing agreements. So we'll be impacted by any delays there. So hopefully there won't be. But we did spend quite a bit of time before we wrote the agreements going back and forth between partners to understand which data elements we wanted to share to answer which questions. And we're already going through all the different fields and defining what that data looks like. So at the minute that those data sharing agreements, the secondary data sharing agreements, are signed and agreed upon, we can literally start sharing data pretty much the next day, I would say. So this timeline makes it look like it's very much a linear type of process, but really all of these things are happening at once. Right now we are working on securing the data sharing agreement, but we're also building pilot dashboard prototypes, and we're also ensuring that we have the right research questions and identifying exactly which data we want, down to looking at each field and saying if it's the, really how we want to define each of those fields, because those of you who work with data know that that's not a simple process. There's lots of different routes that we could go when we're defining data elements. But our goal is that by, let's see where we're, by the spring, that we would actually have pilot dashboards that people would be able to see so that they can better understand what we're able to do with this data sharing, so that they can consider signing on and being included into this. I would say that for K-12, for instance, anything that we're building right now, as we pilot and learn about what the most useful data elements were, then when somebody else signs on, we'll already be able to say, okay, this is exactly what we need from you. And so as soon as we get your data, we can just include it into our current dashboards. But that'll be based upon already, iterating back and forth on what the most useful ways of looking at the data is. So I think that it will go very fast once we get done with our pilot, but we're very excited to be able to learn, what it is that we need. Maybe we need to add data elements, we determine after the pilot, but we had to cut off at some point and just say, okay, this isn't a dissertation. We want to know what we can know quickly. And then the next time when we add more people in, we can iterate and make changes as we need to. And then on the next slide, we have some key learnings for sure that we could share. And one of those key learnings I already highlighted was the importance of clear communication and buy-in across the different institutions. Data sharing is really all about trust and communication. And so that back and forth between entities is not fast, and also just required a lot of open communication and clarity on exactly who's doing what, and what data elements we really need to be able to answer the questions. And that involved everybody from, at the highest level, presidents and superintendents, into the IT departments and down to the program level. So really a lot of people need to be involved, and communication needs to be, just really clear and constant. Another thing we learned is that while people are so ingrained to protect our data, and that definitely needs to be a key thing that we pay attention to, but also FERPA does allow for some data sharing for certain things, like what we're doing with this, which is evaluating the impact. So if we're putting all these efforts into these dual enrollment strategies and making sure that we're doing outreach and all those things, we need to be able to evaluate that as students transition into higher ed. Is it having an impact? Because that is a big goal of dual enrollment. So we need to be able to share, and there are exemptions in FERPA that allow for that. Cradle to Career is the state level data sharing system that is currently being built. And so while they are doing the best they can to move along as quickly as they can, we did leverage the opportunity to learn from them about, the data sharing agreements that they're putting in place, how they're structuring them, what they're learning about the data from place to place. And so we definitely leveraged that, but also we know that work will move somewhat slowly too. We're doing this regionally. They're trying to do it at the state level. So we're working hand in hand with them. We have spent a lot of time on making sure that we have safeguards in place. And we realized early on that that was going to be very, very important. People wanted to know what would happen if there's a breach. So we spent quite a bit of time going back and forth on that. We want to make sure that as we add in new partners, that they're just as committed to security as we are. So there has to be certain guidelines that everybody agrees to follow. We're only as strong as our weakest link, right? So if there is, usually when there's security breaches, it's not because of the system, it's because of the people who were lax in the way that they stored and, left their laptop open with the data, all kinds of things. It's really at the person level where the breach occurs. So that's very, very important. Leveraging the strengths of each regional partner. I work very closely with Manveer and also Isaac from Sac State. And we're just, this is a big body of work. And so we're really just spending a lot of time talking about who can do what, because definitely not one organization can do everything. TWE has been just, an extremely important partner from the legal perspective, because all of this has huge legal implications. So everybody on our team is, just really important. And some of the things that we've learned too is that there are examples of data that is shared with state bodies, but not regionally. For example, in K-12, for keeping track of which student is which, we can know from one school district to another, from one school to another, this is this student because they have an identifier called the SSID. And then that data actually goes to the community college system, but unfortunately it stays at the state level. So we are campaigning heavily right now to bring that down to the regional level. So that's just one example, but there are pieces of data that we need to evaluate our own work locally and regionally that we unfortunately don't have access to. So that's been a big part of our work as well. So I think, do I pass it on to TWE next?
Yes. Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Tweety Nguyen. I'm a partner at Garcia Hernandez Sanji. And first, before I even introduce myself further and my colleague, is to give a real hats off to the incredible leadership of our tri-chairs. You've heard from a couple of them around the work and the work group that in fact, we just came from a meeting on that. They've been consistently meeting to ensure the movement of the K-16 Collaborative. So just quick hats off to them. They did reach out to me at the law firm to ask us to broker a data sharing agreement. And we are proud to say that that has been done. And this is why we're here to lay out to all of you what it is. I would presume that many of you are coming to this info session to get information about how your educational institution, whether it be a California community college or a K-12 in the region, the Sacramento larger region, could be able to participate in this collaborative and be a party to the collaborative. But again, my name is Tweety Nguyen. I'm a partner at Garcia Hernandez Sanji. I've had many past lives, including being a general counsel for the Peralta Community College District for over 12 years. I was also interim general counsel for the State Chancellor's Office, interim president and CEO of the California Community College League of California, and had a 5+ year stint as a college president. So I come to bear with that experience in the work that you're doing, and deeply admire the desire of partnership and regional work. My colleague Kyla will speak a little bit later too, but I do want to let you all know she's a senior associate at counsel at our law firm. She also has another hat. She's a math teacher, director of the MESA program for an East Bay Community College. So she wears, she stands in some of your shoes too, in terms of how important this work is, along with being an engineer herself and a patent attorney. So we have a real strong bench strength with many of our other attorneys in this work, but we are the two faces of our law firm to help you with this collaborative. Again, we are just so happy to see that we were able to, with the party of 5, and I hope you see this shared document. Yuli, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the shared document? Oh, thank you, Carrie. I see the thumbs up. And so we got this document signed. This is the MOU. And in the MOU, we have it such that we are doing what we call the way and the will. It's this notion, this concept of, do you have the will to share data? And let's find a way for you to share it. Now, some of you may be asking, I thought there's this thing called FERPA that you cannot share data. And that is still very true. The law has not changed regarding that. But what we were tasked to do, and what we did do, is to try to find a way for you to be able to share data. Dr. Amber Jacobo mentioned that in the lesson learned is that in FERPA, there are exceptions. So yes, it is very true. You cannot share data, personally identifiable data, right? So we're not talking about the aggregate data, the anonymized data, et cetera. We're talking about PII data. It is true that FERPA does not allow for you to share that data. The lawyers have done a great job really ingraining that in all our institutions. At the same time, FERPA has exceptions. And so what we did was we grabbed all the exceptions that may be related to this K-16 collaborative, and we made the exception, we flipped the narrative. We made the exceptions the center of the conversation in the MOU. And so therefore those exceptions have purposes that you have to fit into. And then what we also did is, again, this is the way, right? So we did the primary MOU is to demonstrate what are the ways in which data could be shared. And then the will. So the will is reflected in a second layer document we call it the SDA, the Secondary Data Agreement, where then individual parties would actually negotiate with each other. What are they willing to share? What are they willing to share for what purpose, right? And get into the granular around that. And that's what the SDA is about. So the SDA creates an opportunity for the willing parties express what are they willing to share. All right. So you have the primary MOU, which was signed by all 4 parties. And then you have, and here it is, the MOU, primary MOU. It was initiated on August 30th. And I'm very proud to say, and I just have to show this, the signatures of what I've affectionately called the Party of 5. UC Davis, Sac State, Elk Grove Unified School District, Sacramento County Office of Ed, and Los Rios Community College District. All right. So this is the signature of it. The primary MOU has these exhibits. Coincidentally, A through G. So if you need to remember, students have to meet A through G. We got exhibits A through G. All right. And each of the exhibits have a role. Obviously, we really try to align as much as we can with the cradle to career. So exhibit A, for instance, the definitions, we use a lot of the definitions that are cradle to career, C2C definitions. So, and also we structured our MOU and the SDA in such a way, a tiered layered approach in such a way that's also very similar to cradle to career in terms of structure, not in terms of what is said, but structure. And our belief is our alignment with cradle to career is critical because if for any reason they shift, we're able to shift with them. And everyone is using a similar lexicon so that there's no confusion around as data trickles downward to the local entities. Okay. Exhibit B, we do have a catalog of personally identifiable information, and this is what people affectionately call the data elements. So if you're interested, the Party of Five has worked really hard to identify data elements, and some of it can be trued up because, you know, of what's happening at the statewide level, but also some of it could be additive. We could add more data elements in the STA, but we do have a core set of data elements identified by each of the Party of Five as potential data that can be shared. We clearly have Exhibit C with the protocol, D with notices, and if you want details, you know, we'll give you the MOU so you can take a look at it. This is a public document. But for any of you who are interested in joining as additional parties, Exhibit E is your magic exhibit, right? So let me go to that exhibit. It's Exhibit E. So this is where you would sign to come in as an additional party, and the Party of Five will be notified of your participation. But by signing this, you are accepting all the terms of the MOU. So we're not renegotiating the MOU. The MOU has been negotiated and approved by the Party of Five with all their legal units approving this. So this is done. And so your participation, if you sign it, would go in this agreement of all the terms of the primary MOU. Now, one of the things that we also want to do is, as I mentioned to you, in terms of flipping the script and really following the flow, one of the critical aspects of this work is an understanding, and it goes to a little bit of what our tri-chairs spoke about of the lessons learned. In order to create this connective tissue of partnership, whether if you're a K-12 and you want to have that partnership with Cal State, Sac State, or UC Davis, or your local community college, in order for you to have that connective tissue, it does require a mind shift, right? So I'll give you one example. One of the FERPA exceptions is an exception I affectionately call the school official exception. It requires for you to say, I can share this data with and contract with another outside entity and share this data because I need them to help me with a school official duty that is a legitimate educational interest that is within my professional goal, right? So a K-12 would have to have the mind shift that it is our mission and vision to help students get into college. And what is one college that they guarantee get into? And that is the local community college, right? So being able to have that mind shift, and so therefore bring in the local community college district to partner and share that data to then recruit and notify students about their admission to their local community college district. That's a mind shift. And that mind shift is more than just an organizational systemic mind shift. It's a mind shift that has legal import, because that is how we are able to activate one of the many exceptions to the FERPA exception, right? So I'm seeing some nods, and I'm hoping that we understand. And what's nice about the K-16 Collaborative grant is the grant in some ways gives you that larger purpose that you could rally around. But you have to have that very definitive thinking around that mind shift. Now, for some of you, because you're here, you're probably already in a collaborative mode. That mind shift may not be hard for you, but I do have to say, I do not assume that. And it's really important that everyone understands that, because that is critical to the legal component of this. All right. So that's just one example of many examples of where mind shifts have to occur in order for you to be able to participate and take advantage of the legal exceptions to FERPA. The other is also what we did was we had it so that one of the exhibits, Exhibit F, where the entities would delegate to then go into that detail that I talked about, the willing, the SDA, the secondary data agreement. And that's where all the exciting work is going on, conversations about transfers and reverse transfers, conversations around dual enrollment and details of that, and how to not only support students who are currently in dual enrollment, but where can we identify students to let them know about opportunities for an engineer pathway, for instance, or a health pathway, so that we can recruit students into a pathway for dual enrollment purposes. So lots of exciting, just I'm really in awe of what the parties are doing in terms of their willingness to be able to create that connective tissue. And again, we are sharing PII data, personally identified data. So it's not about just, creating a dashboard to see a flow and large groups of cohorts and how they're doing, which is really critical. But by sharing PII data, we're able to then contact the students, right? Get in touch with the students and do intervention types of program and services. So this is where the excitement occurs. And I think that's why many people are excited about that, because through that connective tissue, real services and real program and real thinking could occur for students. That said, the SDA is a really critical element. So we are not, since the MOU has already been negotiated, done, we're quite frankly not going to just have people sign the MOU and say they're part of the collaborative. We want to start negotiating the SDA. So if you are an entity that would like to be a part of this, we are going to start having you negotiate the SDA. So my wonderful colleague, Kyla O, is going to go through a little bit of what it's going to entail, the SDA, the secondary data agreement. So Kyla?
Thank you so much, Twee, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to join. Like Twee has said, I am counsel at Garcia Hernandez Sani, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about, what are the next steps after you would sign the MOU and how would you get started. So first of all, I just want to talk about the SDA is the agreement between two institutions. So it's not like, you're going to be have an SDA with all 5 of the current parties, right? It's going to be between your institution and then one other institution. So you would have to first start thinking about who is it that you are interested in sharing data with. And then once you've kind of gotten that down, then you want to identify those data elements that you want to share. So those, pieces of personal identifying information that you want to exchange with the other institution. And so as part of that thinking, it's not only the data elements, but we also need to know, what is the purpose? Why do you want to share your data? And that's going to be really important, because the SDA defines the scope of that data sharing. So whatever it is that you agree to, that's going to be what you're going to be limited to share the data. And the next step is to identify who those authorized users and third parties are. Those are going to be those individuals who are going to have access to the data that you're going to be sharing. So all of that gets incorporated into the SDA. And if there's any additional elements that you notice in the MOU that you think, oh, I would like to incorporate these into the SDA, that's the place to do it. So like we said, we're not renegotiating the MOU, but if there are additional concerns or provisions that you want to ensure that are, in your agreement, the SDA is the place where you can do that. So if you want to move forward, what would we need? What are those kind of next steps? Are going to be who the institution is that you want to share data with, the data elements that you want to share, who the authorized users and third parties are, and then we need your administrative contact, like who's your lead person that's going to be kind of the go-to in this negotiation process, and who is the technical liaison, the individual or possibly individuals who will be kind of leading the technical part, right? The data sharing itself. So that is all in, specified in the SDA. And then we're not going to do any data exchange until those authorized users and third parties have undergone the training that we'll provide to ensure that they're familiar with, all the things that are set out in the data governance plan, and understand, the scope of the purpose for the data sharing, so that we're can ensure, security is there and understanding of the data exchange is clear. So that's kind of the next steps, and the SDA is the way in which everything gets spelled out.
Thank you so much, Kyla.
Mhm.
Just 3 additional points to accentuate, and then we'll open up for questions that you may have. And that is, as Kyla mentioned, we will be doing a training for all authorized users and third-party providers. And this is not your typical FERPA training, although it incorporates FERPA. We're going to be really specifically honing in on why they are identified as authorized users, what is their purpose, what are the guardrails, and use of AI, use of CRM, et cetera. All of that will be part of our very customized training for this K-16 collaborative. The other, as Associate Vice Chancellor Manvir Bola mentioned, we do also constructed a data governance committee. That committee, actually, our first meeting is going to be next week. And the goal is that there are representatives from the Party of Five. And so if your institution joins this, you would also need to appoint a person to that governance committee. And the goal of that committee is to do a whole host of things. One of it is to ensure training, ensure compliance, to work with our insurance carrier, our cybersecurity carrier around data risk management, to ensure that once an authorized user is no longer at your institution or has moved up or around in your institution, that they have destroyed the data, et cetera. So real management of this to prevent breach, in addition to being an incident command structure should a breach occur. So, and that's also the other thing, is that we are pretty much close to inking the securing of a cybersecurity insurance. This is additive insurance. My guess is every educational institution has its own liability insurance in addition to cybersecurity insurance, but this is specific for the K-16 collaborative. So if the Party of Five will be covered, and if you join in as an additional party, you will also be covered. And the goal is that should a breach occur, we do not find ourselves pointing fingers at each other of who is the cause of the breach. We collectively handle and manage the incident, and it's covered by additional coverage. So that's the goal of cybersecurity. So with that said, I, along with our tri-chairs and Kyla O, will be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Peter, you're up first.
Thank you. So I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. I'm the Senior Director of Technology for San Juan Unified School District. So when you talk about the separate cybersecurity insurance that you're trying to do, so is that a joint liability, and what's the indemnification around that, as far as how that may affect our existing cybersecurity policies or policies that are in place, as far as if there a breach occurs, is it shared liability, and is it something we have to then report to our primary provider in regards to that breach?
As someone who has handled risk management and oversaw risk management and insurance, it's always wise to notify your individual security insurance. But in terms of the MOU states very clearly that all parties will indemnify each other if you are the entity at fault. But that indemnification is only gets kicked in if it is not covered by the collaborative cybersecurity insurance. So the collaborative cybersecurity insurance will be the first go. And our notion of it right now, I don't want to get too much into detail until it's actually inked, but it's a very high multi-million-dollar number of coverage. It will also coverage payment costs for notification to all students and parents. And also a program for identification of fraud for a certain number of years, et cetera. So all of that along with legal liability coverage, et cetera. So all of that is covered. And to any extent it goes beyond, the cost goes beyond that, then the individual entities will pick up the tab. But we anticipate that that will not be needed in light of how high the coverage is. At this point.
Great. And I do have another kind of question in regards to the existing pilot program. Did they need to notify parents of the involvement of data being shared with other agencies? And if so, is there an opt-out if a parent does not want their data shared with other organizations?
Great question. Boyd, would I love to work with you. So the notion is this: the way we approach from a legal standpoint, it's almost layered, prophylactic in nature, right? So there is that notion around, for instance, directory information that is allowed to be shared, that is identified by specific K-12. So depending on your district, how you have identified that and notified students and parents. Obviously, there's a certain portion of them that is allowed to opt out of that. So then there's that next layer, and that next layer is what I had mentioned. One of the many is the school official layer, and that school official layer allows you to really share the data even without an opt-out situation, right? However, this is also risk management from your standpoint, right? From the K-12 district standpoint. So more than happy to work with you and your legal team in terms of your next round of notification to parents is for when you do the opt-out is to maybe also mention the collaborative, right? That would be a risk management, not a legal requirement per se, but a risk management of that. So so more than happy to work with you, especially as we dig, if your entity joins the as an additional party, to talk through it and work with your legal counsel to help you do the proper notification for parents.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great questions, Peter.
Do we have any other questions, or those who might be shy, feel free to put them in the chat.
And please, your questions are for the benefit of the larger group who's not here, because this is a recorded info session. So if you're going, oh, I wonder if anyone's asking this question, most likely they are. So please do ask the question. And Peter, if I can go back while people are marinating on their question, is the governance committee, our insurance broker, and we will also invite our insurance carrier to have a representative on the governance committee. So the goal is so that they are living through this process with us to help also have discussions around risk and do any preventative measures to help us think through the process. So we're really hoping to have really collaborative thinking around cybersecurity.
With that said, has there been any involvement of SIA, which is the primary insurance provider for most of the districts in Sacramento County? Have you guys been working with them in regards to, because that's who our cybersecurity insurance for all the districts in Sacramento County is through?
That, I would love to have that conversation with you. The invitation, we always welcome more people to, to create expertise with the governance committee. So let's talk offline if you are part of that, or I can talk offline with our tri-chairs around additional people to come in and help support. But what we will very much lean on our main K-16 cybersecurity carrier, and right now it's a A++ rated cybersecurity. That's the highest rating for security insurance. So so we have great confidence that they will bring a wealth of knowledge into our committee work and our governance work. But that said, we want coordination. So should there be an insistence or a great idea thinking about it, I'm very open to it. Very open to it. Thank you for the idea. Ooh, we have a hand.
Hi, everybody. My question is kind of more, I think, for Amber about a little bit what you were describing about the outreach to students. Just because when we're having conversations about the dual enrollment we're offering, it's kind of a carefully selected set of classes right now. And so kind of what the logistics would be like when you're talking about advertising or outreach to students on different pathways that are available, if as a district we hadn't selected those as dual enrollment that we were offering, just because we're talking through logistics of we think it's a fabulous opportunity for students, but there's logistics around what we're offering in terms of conversations with the union about then not offering, having different class sizes and things like that. So just kind of, what does that look like?
So what we're actually toying with around the outreach is a collaboration with Los Rios on, I hesitate to use the word targeting, but finding students, and really we're just showing directory level data. So there is no targeting really, but
Right.
It's the identifying students who might be a great candidate to go to Los Rios. And, the idea is that there would be collaboration between the district and Los Rios to identify students who could be there could be great pathways for them. And so really we're just sharing directory data and then figuring out what the right collaboration looks like. What do the conversations look like? What's the best way to share information with students? Los Rios is getting the directory information, so they could reach out directly like they always could in a variety of ways, but they could reach out directly, through mailers and phone calls, whatever. But the collaboration between the district and Los Rios, the power of that is that there would really be able to, they could leverage each other in different ways than was possible before. So it's not necessarily specific to dual enrollment, but it could be if we had students who would be great for an engineering pathway and we have room and we're doing something new. Who would be your students? How can you share that information with them? Could look like that. Could also look like, could look differently, but that's what we think about right now.
Okay, thank you.
Pam, if I can also piggyback from that, your question too, of a larger picture question is, this is 8-county Sacramento Regional effort, and 4 community college districts are in those 8 counties. And each of those 4 community colleges serve district service areas that cover certain K-12s. So our ask of the community colleges in the K-12 is to find each other and come to the table, as Kyla had mentioned, with the SDA. So whoever is your local community college district, you're the one bringing that party with them. If you're a community college district, bring at least one K-12 with you, right? To the party, so to speak, right? And we'll then be able to negotiate our SDA. We're not going to be crossing over district service areas, but we still are very much a big picture map of the collaborative. There was a request to have a copy of the MOU. I'm sure our capital impact folks, colleagues have seen that and will be providing it. But if not, I'd like to just note that there's a request to get the full MOU. So, all right. Any other questions? Great questions.
Peter has his hand up.
Oh,
Yes.
all right, Peter.
Had another question in regards to partners. So we have in our district, we have many mentorship programs that are supplying us data into our dashboards that we already have. And
Yeah.
so is there an avenue for us to provide that information, as additional data sets, or have those partners provide that data that they're supplying to us, to the to you guys?
Uh-huh. Are those partners nonprofit partners or
Correct. They're not
public?
they're nonprofits. Like one that comes to mind is IYT, Improve Your Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
which they are also doing their outside tracking of kids from our district that go to community colleges or go to state
Yeah.
universities or the UC system.
Yeah. Well, we lovingly call them third parties from a legal standpoint, and we definitely have a place for them in this larger partnership because we recognize very much how each of our educational entities have contracts with these nonprofits to be able to, whether it be nonprofit or even private entities that do data crunching for you or data analysis, let alone programmatic services and therefore data that comes with that. So there is definitely a place for third party to enter into this space. So we can have that conversation with you and have them included and named in the SDA. The other thing is our training includes training for authorized users and third party. So we want the third party to come to the training to have a real clear understanding of what's going on, how the data, the control of the data, et cetera. So, and the data flow. So the answer is yes, 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 and there are many mechanisms for it.
All right, everybody, as we start to close, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. If Twee, you have any parting words for the group, I put up the contact information. So for more programmatic questions about the collaborative, you can reach out to me. For legal questions, it would be Twee and Kyla who could answer those questions for you. But opening up to Twee to maybe round us out and then
Well,
have
one of
them.
the questions I have been getting is, can we share the draft of the SDAs that are currently in place? And the answer is, I don't think it would be very apropos to do that, to allow the space for the various parties to review. But if you contact us, and I'm not LLP T-Win, there's a space, so I start with T-Win at GHS Law and Kyla. Contact us because whatever is the content of that, we'll give you a draft of what your SDA would look like. And it will look very familiar to the others. So that's going to be a hint on that one. But please contact us. We can get you started. And even if at the end of the day, you are not going to be able to finish and do the SDA, at least you will see visually what it looks like. Potentially could look like. All right. All right, Ms. Yulee.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Again, if you still have questions, please reach out. We are happy to answer anything you may have. We will send out this recording to everybody who registered and then also have it accessible on our website. So you can definitely forward it along to any colleagues. Thank you, everybody.